Welcome to the Obesity Medicine Podcast with your host, Dr. Rentea, board certified in internal medicine and obesity medicine. Here, we talk about a path to metabolic health, and we have real conversations about chronic weight management and living a full life. Just a reminder, I am a physician, but I'm not your physician. So everything that's on this podcast is for informational purposes, but please go talk to your doctor about what's right for you. There is no medical advice being given on this podcast. Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. I am so excited that you're all with me. Today, we have a really, really special treat. So we have Jane Pilger, and she is a master certified binge eating and body trust coach. And I want to give you a little bit of background. So Jane, I'm going to have you introduce yourself in a second. No one is random that comes on the podcast. So everyone that comes on the podcast, I myself have followed, or I myself have learned from, or I've really received something that I actually very much so clinically use, or I send patients to. So the reason I'm bringing you in, I saw your work initially. This was, I think, years ago at this point. It was a while ago, right? Maybe you can tell me the year when you come on, but years ago, you taught a course in Corinne Crabtree's membership, and it was Binge Better. And there were ways that you spoke about binge eating that I'm getting chills right now. I'm remembering the content and the way in which you delivered it. It was impeccable. And here's the thing that really impressed me. The concept stuck with me to an extent where I literally, to this day, about half my patients have binge eating. If you look at the numbers they say 1 out of 3 people that struggle with their weight long-term will have binge eating disorder. I think it's actually higher than that if we even just extrapolate to binge eating tendencies, because hopefully we're going to get into what is what, right? What's a disorder versus just something that's happening, overeating. But I still use those things, some of them. And so I met you at a conference here about a week or two ago, actually at Corinne Crabtree's. And I was like, Jane, you need to come on the podcast. You didn't know who I was. But can we start out where you just introduce yourself a little bit for those that don't know you? And then I have so many questions that I want to ask you today.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited about our conversation today. And I just already know it's going to be amazing even before knowing even what we're going to talk about. I just know it's going to be so great. I am just thrilled to be here. Yeah, I'm Jane Pilger. I really got into coaching around binge eating, and all of the knowledge that I have around binge eating, it really is born of my own personal struggle. And so my first binge was my very first semester in college, which I have come to discover is a very common time for people to start struggling with binge eating, is kind of in that transition time leaving for college. But that was my very first binge. And I don't really remember the binge itself, but what I remember so clearly is sitting on the floor in my dorm room. I had binged on a care package full of little miniature chocolate bars. And I remember just sitting on the floor, being surrounded by I ate the whole box, and just being surrounded by all of these wrappers and this empty box in front of me, and just thinking, oh my gosh, what have I done? What did I just do? What is wrong with me? And that was the start of it. And I spent decades trying to stop binge eating. And little did I know, so many of the things that I was trying were keeping me in the cycle. But I mean, I have done all of the things, from eating disorder therapists to the books to the diets to 2 rounds of intensive outpatient therapy at a local eating disorders treatment center. And I would have these periods of success, but I would always inevitably go back and start binging again. And I remember years and years ago, thinking, if I ever figure this out, I want to help other people do the same, because I had so much shame. I would not talk to anybody about it. I would not tell anybody what I did. And I have come to discover just how common binge eating is. But because there's so much shame, nobody is talking about it. And because of that, it feels very alone and very isolating, and like you are the only one who does this. But the reality is, if binge eating is something that you struggle with, I just want you to know you are not broken. You are not alone. There's such a good reason that you do what you do. And that really has just become my life's work, is to help people understand binge eating, understand why they do, to be able to see it through a different lens. Because I find if you're not just fighting it and hating it and wanting it to go away, which is what most of us do, which makes sense, if we're not fighting it and hating it, but instead we're understanding it, we can like put on, I like to say it's like we put on a new pair of glasses. We see the binge through this, like, I hate you, you must go away glasses. But I help people put on a new pair of glasses that's like, oh, I can see now. I can see why this makes sense. I can see why I'm doing this. And if I can see it from this place of like understanding, now I can work with it instead of just trying to hate it and make it go away. So that's really the work that I do now.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And by the way, I always find in life the people that have the most powerful message and way of delivering it, it's because they've actually gone through it, right?
Yes.
I'm not saying that, there's going to be a lot of medical providers that have never gone through binge eating disorder and they'll still be in helping treat, which is okay. But the way in which you talk about it, I'm like, oh, I get it. I get it deeply when every single thing you're saying. So let me ask though, if we take a step back, and we're not going to do like the medical angle here today, right? Because I think this is a different lens that I really want to focus on. But how does someone even know if they struggle with this? Because I think that we've really normalized in society overeating. It's like, oh yeah, Thanksgiving, like just had all the food and we kind of laugh. But it's like a very different thing, I think, that versus sort of going toward binge eating. So what might be happening for someone? Like, how do they know if this is even a thing? Because I can tell you the traditional doctor's not asking about this because they don't know what to ask and they don't know what to do.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So I will answer the question in a very basic way, and then I'll also give your listeners a couple of resources that they can go and hear even a little bit longer, more extended answer. So generally, when we're talking binge eating versus overeating, emotional eating, something like that, there's really some common characteristics. So it's going to be eating large volumes of food, like more than typically would be consumed at one time. Typically eaten very fast, and it's often done in secret. So it's often, you don't want anybody else to see you. Sometimes there can be odd combinations of foods, like it's food you wouldn't necessarily normally eat either together or on their own sometimes, and intense feelings of shame. Those are kind of the hallmarks of what we're talking binge eating. So with emotional eating, overeating, it's very different than like, oh, I'm just so full. Like I want to unbutton my pants. It's not that. It's this. There's also, I forgot probably the most important component of that, which is this sense of like being unable to stop. Like I can't stop eating is a very common, it's a common experience. And like either I don't want to stop or I can't stop. So a lot of times, I mean, you might be eating just well beyond the point of full, like literally eating until you could not eat another thing. I would have, for example, I used to get like sores in the roof of my mouth from eating. I ate a lot of cereal and dry cereal. Corinne would always be like, I can't believe you don't put milk on it, but I didn't. And so I would get a lot of sores in the roof of my mouth or even just various things from eating such large quantities of food. So those are really kind of the main factors that distinguish actually a binge. And as far as I had mentioned a couple of resources, so I have a podcast. It's called the Binge Breakthrough Podcast. There are a couple of episodes there, and I can send you links to them if you want to include them. But one of them is what is the difference between binging and overeating? So it's pretty much what I just said. There's also this week's podcast just came out. It's called Am I a Binge Eater? And it's a question I get a lot. Is what I'm doing binging? I often have people come up to me and they'll say, even after taking that Binge Better course, for example, I've had a lot of people come up to me and say, I didn't even know that what I did was binging until I heard you talk. And then I have other people who are like, is what I'm doing binging? I'm not really sure. I don't know if it is a binge. Does it matter? So I talked about it on that podcast episode as well. But the very short answer, if somebody doesn't want to go to another episode, is I personally don't think we have to get into labels. We don't have to get into, yes, you're binging. No, you're not binging. Sometimes it's honestly not helpful. I used to get to this point. I had this like imaginary line. Once I crossed it, oh, well, now I'm binging. And since I am, like to be all in on everything that I do, if I decided I was binging, that I was all in. And so I think for me, deciding if it was a binge wasn't exactly helpful. So I think what I like to talk about more and what I like to have people even think about is what is the energy behind your eating experience? Does it feel like really frenzied? Does it feel like I can't stop? Does it feel like I'm out of control? Or is it just like, oh man, that tastes so good? I'm enjoying it. I don't really want to stop. I know I'm going to have a stomach ache, but I don't care. Like those are very different energies in terms of the experience. And so I think even just knowing, and all of us have had experiences where we're eating food with a different type of energy. And I think that's enough for most people to just see what their experience is like.
Yeah, I really love that you bring this up because I totally agree as well. Like sometimes I find I don't even need to make the diagnosis because it's like we're going to explore all these things equally in some capacity. And so it ends up being like, unless they're truly in a spot where we need like a serious medical intervention, it
Yes.
ends up being
Yes.
something where, like you said, because I've even thought about this with myself. I'm like, does this meet? Does it not? And I'm like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't
Right.
matter at all. So
Yes.
I love that you bring that up. And okay, so let's say that let's just go down the road of someone's like, I really do identify with this. I've really been in distress over this. I know I want to do something about it. Is there sort of like a best place to start?
It's such a good question. I really talk about 8 primary reasons why people binge, and I'll briefly discuss the 8 reasons. And so if you're listening and you're like, oh yeah, binge eating, like based on what you're saying, that's me kind of, I'm raising my hand. Listen to these 8 reasons and just see. Now, it's very likely that you are going to resonate with some, if not all, of these reasons. And for anybody who struggles with food in any way, these are really kind of the 8 primary reasons. But I think there's so much benefit in just understanding why it happens, just to start to see that. So I'll go through the 8 reasons, and then what I really recommend that you do is kind of like, oh, yeah, that if as I list them out, there's probably going to be at least a couple that really pop out to you as, oh, that's probably really going on for me. So then it kind of gives you a place that you can kind of look and explore a little bit more. So the 8 reasons are number one is shame and judgment, which most people who deal with binge eating have really deal with shame and judgment. And shame and judgment is the biggest thing that will prevent you from being able to like understand it and really look at it in a different way. So I like to think about bit, and I'll come back to the rest of them. But here's an analogy that I love to use. I like to think about binges as your binge eating is like a light on the dashboard. So when you have a binge, it's like the light comes on the dashboard and it tells us there's something going on under the hood, something we need to look at under the hood. And so most people, what they do is they see the light and they're like, oh, the problem is the food. Let me just get rid of the food. Let me change what I'm eating. Let me just restrict myself. Let me just never eat this food again. Then I'll solve it. But that's kind of like just taking duct tape and putting it over your dashboard so that you don't see the light. Well, that's not what we want to do. We got to get under the hood and see what's causing the light to come on. Then we can fix that. And then the light's just not going to come on. What I find is binge eating actually unwinds itself when we can look under the hood. But shame and judgment, this number one reason, it's like a 50-pound weight that goes on the hood of your car. And we can't even open the hood to get under to see what else is going on if we have shame and judgment about our behavior. So literally the number one reason is shame and judgment. When you stay in the I'm broken, what's wrong with me? Why can't I figure this out? I know what to do, but I'm just not doing it, like that over and over again, that will keep that hood or that weight on the hood of your car, and we can't even get to the rest of them. So that's reason number one. Reason number two is restriction. Physical restriction, actually not eating enough food. But there's also something that's called mental restriction. And mental restriction is like most diet language. I'm going to be good tomorrow. I might even I'm like anything where it's like you're mentally limiting yourself. Well, I'll have this cookie today, but that means I won't have any cookies tomorrow. I'll have some chips with lunch, but that means I have to have a salad for dinner. Like any of that type of stuff is actually mental restriction where your brain doesn't really know the difference. Are you basically going to put me on a diet and starve me again and again and again? So restriction, number 2 reason. Number 3 reason, this was huge for me, a dysregulated nervous system. So when your nervous system is dysregulated, when you are, we so wisely learn, often at a very young age, that food will help calm us down. And so we kind of then, especially if we didn't learn tools of self-regulation growing up for lots of different reasons, we kind of really brilliantly figure out, oh, I can use food to regulate myself. And then that just continues. But the problem is with the nervous system, if we use food to try to regulate, we have a lot of energy in our nervous system, and we use food to try to bring us down. We do too much. And then we end up eating so much that now we're kind of like in that collapse freeze state. So I used to never, ever, ever let myself stop. Like I would just go, go, go all the time, go, 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 push, 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 except for when I binged. And after a binge, I would literally just be on the couch doing nothing but scrolling and searching for what to do after a binge, because it was the only time I allowed myself to stop. And so I was trying to regulate my nervous system with food because I didn't even understand what my nervous system was or how to regulate myself any other way. So that's reason number 3. Reason number 4 is disconnection from your body, which anybody who has been on a diet, hello, most women and many humans in the world, we are taught how to disconnect from our bodies. So whether it's through diet, whether it's through some sort of traumatic event, we have a lot of practice in disconnecting from the natural signals of our body. So that's reason number 4. Reason number 5, it's a coping mechanism. We literally don't have the tools and the skills to handle bigger, intense emotions. I call it your emotional capacity. So your emotional capacity is your capacity to be with any emotion. And many of us have very small emotional capacities. So when it feels like it's too much for our emotions feel like too much, we use food to try to cope. Reason number 6, an attempt to control. We're trying to control our bodies. We're trying to control our weight. We're trying to control our self-image, what other people think of us. This was for sure a thing for me. So just this attempt to control. Sometimes we can't actually control the size of our body, yet somehow we've received the messages that we can. Reason number 7 is habit. So when you do something, anything repeatedly over time, your brain wants to put that into its subconscious. Now, the problem is a lot of people like to look at binge eating as a habit, like as number 1. Well, if I just break the habit, if I just stop doing this, if I just stop eating at night when the kids go to bed, or if I just stop going to the drive-through when I leave work before I get home, then it'll all just go away. But that's actually probably not true because we haven't addressed all of the other things. So they really do all need to be looked at, and habit absolutely is one of the reasons, but we can't just look at it on its own. And the last and final reason number 8, is negative self-talk. And it's just the way that you talk about yourself or to yourself inside your own head. And so that this really shows up after a binge. Just like, I'm so gross, I'm disgusting. I used to think all the time, I can't tell you how many times I would just think like, I hate myself. I can't believe this. I'll never figure this out. I'm broken. What's wrong with me? All of those things, that negative self-talk, we're so punishing to ourselves. And if you think about this for yourself, when anybody else speaks negatively to you or about you, what do you want to do? You want to get as far away from them as possible. The only way we know how to get away from ourselves is to eat. So we end up kind of getting ourselves in this cycle where it's like, I have this really harsh internal critic, and then I don't like that. It feels awful. And the only way I know is to disconnect from myself is to eat. Like I used to say that binging for me was like turning the lights off on myself. And it is. I mean, there is this true disconnection, this true like dissociation from ourselves. But if we can change the way that we talk to ourselves in the moments while we're eating, after a binge, that can shift so much so that we're not needing to just turn right around again and do it all over again.
Oh my gosh, these are all so good. It's interesting. I can relate to so many of these. I'm only
Yeah.
laughing because I just experienced the dysregulation one the other day where it was like, because I had been at a conference and there was more work when you come back. I don't know if you ever have that where it's just
Oh,
suddenly
yes.
everything, right? And it's like, it's going to happen because you don't get time off if you can't, in some capacity, rearrange things. And I remember I could tell, I'm like, I feel so out of control, like as far as how I'm feeling, my schedule. And what was the first thing I did? I tried to clamp down on food because I was like, well, that you can control it, right? But it's so
Yes.
fascinating because something I've really had to work on the past few years is not overworking as much because I
Yes.
love overworking. It is such an easy like coping thing for me. And
Mhm.
so it's fascinating when you're bringing up this list. I'm like, oh yeah, I do all those different capacities, right?
Yes.
So I think this list is really good because I love how you started off kind of talking about how we have to like get under the hood because people think
Mhm.
get rid of the food, get rid of this. It's like so not the issue and it's
Yes.
just going to keep recurring. In fact, it even gets worse because you're like, well, I did throw it out and now you got a meal delivered and now you're feeling, you know what I mean? It's like you're going to,
Yes.
I always say you're going to get it in some capacity. You're going to go to a gas
Yep.
station, you're going to order it, you're going to
Yep.
ask a friend like it in some capacity if you want it, if we're not actually addressing what's going on, it will occur again. So this list is super enlightening. And I think people listening are really going to get a sense of that. So obviously it's super broad, right? What might be someone's challenge? One question something that you've described in the past I think might be helpful for people is you've really just, I mean, we talk about with binge eating, it's not really like trying to get to zero. It's sort of like maybe decreasing it or being able to support yourself more before, during, after, all these different things. Can you talk about how you explain that to people? Because obviously we can't talk about the kind of how to get into all this, but just maybe it's not a zero, but like what are we actually going for with working on this?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say where I've really shifted. So the course that you took that was called Binge Better, right,
Yep.
was really talking about, okay, we're not trying to get rid of binge eating. We're really trying to binge better. And what does binging better look like? Well, the challenge, and which I still very much stand behind. Now, the challenge is a lot of people are like, I don't want to binge better. I just don't want to
Right.
binge at all, right? I
Right.
just want to get rid of it, which is understandable. But so now the way that I really talk about it now is that the binge eating will unwind itself. So it's like it will unwind itself over time. It may happen quickly and it may take an extended period of time. Like we can never say exactly how long it will take for it to unwind. But if we know, okay, here are the things that are going on that are keeping me wound up and in this process of binge eating, if I can just look at some of these and pick out some of these areas to focus on, if I work on this, then the binge eating, the lights are naturally going to start coming on less often. If I am working on my self-talk, like during and after a binge, I
Yeah.
am very likely to already have eat less food and
Yes.
have fewer instances. So
Yeah.
it's more, I've really kind of shifted into thinking more around like like really supporting yourself, being really kind to yourself. Like, how can you like be as curious and compassionate as possible about like the lights themselves? If we can separate the behavior from you as a person,
Yeah.
like it is not, this isn't about you as a person. You are not a failure. You are not broken. But yeah, we've got some lights on and let's see what is happening with these lights. This then tells us. So now I can kind of look, and if I'm open and I start to like be aware and curious, that's where the magic happens, because so many people are like, "Oh my gosh, now I can see what I couldn't see before." Like now that I'm like seeing with these new glasses, I can see these patterns. I can see how, oh yeah, I have been so many people who struggle with binge eating. There's a lot of rigidity. There's a lot of black and white thinking. It's either or. I'm either eating perfectly or I'm totally off the rails. It's very, like I said I wasn't going to eat dessert. I ate one cookie, now I have to go eat 24. Like there's very much of that like rigidity. So then we just start like, well, let's get curious. Where else can we see the rigidity? Where else can we see some of these patterns showing up in life? And then it's like, oh, so a lot of it really is awareness. Like if as soon as we get out of shame and judgment, we can open up to awareness, to curiosity and compassion. If we can, and we can use those, then that really opens up so much.
Could we give people an example of what could be a question that they could ask themselves? Like they sense this is coming, right? Usually I always describe it like a migraine, like an aura, like you can tell that these things are coming on, right? And
yes.
is there a question that they could ask themselves that could get them more into that awareness, curiosity, compassion? Are there any questions that you ask maybe before, during, or after? I don't know if that's kind of part of
Yes.
how you work with
Oh,
people.
absolutely. So I love that you asked this question because I literally I have this PDF that I think I'm pretty sure I actually even have this as a download. So
Okay.
I will give you this URL so that if your listeners want to get this as a download, but they're powerful questions that you can ask before, during, and after. It's like here's a very powerful question. Like if you sense it's coming, you're like you're imagining, right? You're imagining yourself going and getting this food. A lot of times that's how it happens first for people, is you're almost picturing it in your mind, where whether you're going to get it from your pantry or the drive-through or the bakery or the convenience store, it's almost like you picture it in your head. So you can ask yourself this question: what do I think the food is going to do for me? Is a powerful question, because sometimes then it can be like, well, I think it's going to make me feel better a lot of times, right? But that's a great question to ask. What do I think this is going to do for me? Another powerful question you can ask is, what am I afraid will happen if I don't eat? There's brilliance in this answer because it will tell you what you're afraid of. Third question would be, what do I really need? I love the question of like, what is it that I really need right now?
That's my favorite
Sometimes these
question in the world.
Yes, exactly. And we always know. Here's the thing that happens though. Sometimes, and as far as the nervous system goes, sometimes these are great questions. They're brilliant questions. They will give you a lot of insight. They're not always available. So I really want you, if you're like, oh, I'm listening to this podcast, these are questions I'm going to ask myself this question the next time I really want to eat. And then you like, now you've eaten and you're like, oh, I can't believe it. I didn't even ask the question. What's wrong with me? I can't figure, that whole thing. There are times, especially when your nervous system is really, really dysregulated, the access to your logical brain is gone. You don't even have access to it, which means these brilliant questions won't even come to mind. Now, if you get in the habit of asking questions a lot, then you will be much more likely for those questions to show up in those really high stress moments. But don't expect yourself to ask yourself some brilliant question that takes your logical brain in the moment where there's not a lot of logic happening for you right now.
I love that you bring this up because I do a lot of coaching with emotional eating within my clinic. And I talk about this. I'm like, in the moment of panic, as it's happening, when you've never learned another tool, all that your body is just fight or flight, everything's happening all at once. That's not the time when you're like, and now I'm going to do this really new thing that Dr. Rentea taught. It's like, no, we got to practice that outside. And I like actually how you're like, if you're always asking questions, your chance of maybe being able to ask a question is going to increase during that time. Love that. I want people to like, please hear that. If you're someone new to this work, that I think is such a gem that you just shared. Like our brain is offline and you got to do it the other time. So you even have a fighting chance at it during those times. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I was on a call with a client earlier today and we were kind of talking through a recent experience where she had, eaten in a way that she didn't love. And so we were talking about that. And we were kind of talking about what she would do differently the next time. And she was like, well, I would go into my office and I would write down, some different, like what I'm thinking. And I was like, no, you won't. Because that in that moment when your brain's like, let's eat, what's happening is often that your brain is sensing there is some sort of perceived threat. And your brain sees food and sees eating and sees the binge as a source of safety. Because in the past, it has been a source of safety for you in the past, which is why it feels like there's this part of me that really wants to let it go. And there's this part of me that really doesn't. That makes sense. You actually do have both of those parts. You have the part that feels like, no, this is really necessary. And you have the other part that's like, this really isn't so good for my health. And it actually feels terrible afterwards. Both of those parts are true when they both exist. And when we try to like just pretend that that part that feels like the food is necessary and like is our source of safety or relief or comfort, when we try to pretend that that part is like we just exile it and put it in the closet, that's part of why we end up like repeating these patterns and these behaviors. We can't just pretend that part doesn't actually exist and isn't actually trying to create some safety and really protection for you. So we have to learn how to like be with that part and not just hate it and wish it would go away, which is, what I did for 20 some odd years.
Let me ask you, because like, and again, I know we're doing like little bits of things and there's this whole big picture, right? Like I totally get that, but people like to leave with like a little thing to do, right?
Yeah.
So if you notice, okay, you feel it coming on, let's say maybe you're not even able to access that. Is there one thing that people could do? I talk about sometimes hand on heart. I talk about different ways to kind of like physically get into your body. Is there a certain thought process that you go through of what people can do that like easily they have access to?
Yeah, absolutely. So I love hand on heart. I also love what I call is the pause with permission. And so the pause with permission is this just gives you space. So instead of, here's what we want to do with our, like the thoughts that come in around food and what we're going to do next and whatever, we don't want to just be like, no, I'm not doing it. Like, we don't want to kind of like force ourselves and like have these rules and this rigidity and like try to like with willpower, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to eat the thing. I'm not going to eat the thing. Like, because that just makes it all worse. But if we can just give ourselves a little bit of space, so we can do it with a hand on heart and just be like, I'm just going to pause. I'm just going to give myself, you can even like put both hands on your heart, over your heart, and then put them out and just, I'm going to pause. Just like pause, just going to pause. I'm going to give myself, maybe I'm going to give myself 10 minutes, maybe just 5 minutes, just going to give myself a little bit of space. Now, this doesn't mean I'm pausing so that I won't eat. I'm just giving myself space. I have permission to eat in the future in this 5-10 minutes, whenever I decide. I just want to give myself a little bit of space. So if I can give myself space and now go do in this pause time anything other than think about food. So like if you can be away from the food, if you can be away from your kitchen, if you have been eating, if you can just like, you know what, I'm just going to step away for just 5 or 10 minutes. I'm just going to give myself a little bit of space. If I still want to eat, I can. So it's like that pause with permission. What it does is it just puts in an interruption. It gives you time for more of your logical brain to come on board. And if you can do something where you are getting more into your body, whether it's taking a walk, whether you're listening to a guided meditation. I've got so many guided meditations inside, a lot of my programs to kind of, work through exactly these times. But whatever it is, a lot of times we just need to break the pattern, like that pattern interrupt. And so many times you just end up doing something else and you're like, oh, whoa, look at that. I don't really feel like I'm going to come out of my skin anymore. Like that period of time, like that really, that part that feels so unbearable, it will pass. Yeah. And I think that's the biggest thing that I really want anybody to know is that like unbearable feeling will pass. We often have this sense that no, it doesn't go away unless I eat. It's like we have this kind of like thought error that food is the only thing that makes it go away. And actually, it really will pass on its own if we're able to like just let it be and kind of relax into it. The problem is we don't relax into it. We're like, it's here. I hate it. I didn't want to be here. I didn't want this. We're trying to like push a beach ball underwater, which is going to end up eventually coming out so much higher. That's what we end up doing with food. Like, no, I didn't want this. Don't eat, don't eat, don't eat, don't eat. And then the next thing you know, you're eating like way more than you expected.
Yeah. Oh, this is so good. So I wrote down everything you were saying. This was years ago. Me and Carrie Williams, we had a membership, and one of my coaching clients had binge eating disorder, and what came out of working with her was the compassion pause. It's literally what you're describing, except the only thing I had inserted differently was, and you don't beat yourself up as you go through this pause. This isn't, I can't believe I want this, and now I'm going to eat this. And it's like, you actually, and I inserted my loved question, what is it that you actually need? But I love how you're like, you're just giving yourself the space. You're trying to get your brain on board. You're breaking the habit. I also really love, to be honest, not only the hand on heart, but how you like just put your hands out. Like there's something about getting into our body and out of our head for a second. And exactly like you said, how these things will become less intense with time. But of course, we don't believe that in the moment because we think everything's going to be as intense at this moment. So that's so hope-filled. And I find we need reminding of this like 24/7, like here's what you do. And then we need to practice it.
Yes. And we need to practice, and we will not always remember. What is likely, if you're listening to this and this is all kind of new to you, here's what's going to happen. You will probably have an urge to eat. You will eat. And then afterwards, you're going to be like, oh, dang it. I was going to ask questions. I was going to put my hands on my heart. I totally forgot. Okay, great. Now, here's another tool I love. It's visualization. There is so much power in visualizing your response. So what I love to do is here's a hot tip for you for after a binge. You're in this moment. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I did it again. I can't believe I was going to ask myself the questions. I was going to put my hands on my heart and I didn't. I love to ask this question. If you had a do-over, what would you do differently? So you get to think about it. Oh, I would ask that question. Okay, let's visualize it. Picture yourself in that moment. Picture yourself. You know exactly what happened. You know what you did. Now picture you responding to yourself in a different way. Because here's what's amazing. Your brain doesn't know the difference between a visualization and the real thing. And so if the last thing that your brain remembers is the visual of you asking yourself those questions, or you doing that pause and then forgetting about the food and then moving on with your day, that's what your brain thinks happened most recently, which will make it that much more available to do the next time.
Oh, that's so
now,
powerful.
if you just beat yourself up, forget it.
Right. I remember that years ago when I first started working with my relationship with food, like a big thing for me was at the store, kind of just like throwing like cookies and stuff in the cart when you go past the bakery. It was just like reflex, like stuff was just like flying in the cart. I used the technique of visualization of closing my eyes and practicing. I'm going to go to Whole Foods and I'm going to get all the produce and I'm going to walk right past that little section. And I went through it, and then I had the magical moment of being at the store one time and I didn't even think about it. And I was like, oh, I just went past the aisle. I didn't even think about it. And it sounds silly if you've never struggled with it, but if you have, you realize, wow, that's a big moment that you didn't have to like internally battle yourself. Am I going to put it in the cart? Am I not? It's like, it's an energy expensive process. And so that was, that visualization. I love how you how you're telling us, look, it's no different, the visualization versus reality. And so it's so great. It's like, you can basically make it whatever you want if you're willing to put some energy into it. I love that.
Yes. And what we often want to do, if you think about it, makes so much sense. Most of what we do is disconnect. We disconnect with food. We disconnect our body from our emotions. We disconnect even afterwards, right? After we binge, we disconnect from ourselves. It's like all we're doing is disconnecting. And I have actually recently discovered, so these 8 reasons I've been talking about for a while, you can actually go back to the first probably 10 episodes of my podcast are my story, the 8 reasons why you binge, the solution to each reason. And then the next 8 episodes are a deeper dive into each of those 8 things. But I've recently come to realize if I could boil all of binge eating down to one word, it's disconnection.
Yes.
When we binge, we are disconnecting for some reason in some way, which means that the solution is connection. Now there's a lot, I actually recorded a podcast about this just yesterday. I recorded it. I literally believe that connection is the closest thing to a magic pill you are ever going to find.
So true.
Now, it's not easy though. It's simple, but it's not easy. And it's a skill that has to be cultivated and it takes time. And there are reasons why we disconnect. But if we can cultivate the skill of connecting with ourselves, with our bodies, with our emotions, with our nervous systems, with other people, with our internal kind of compassionate voice, all of that, if we can cultivate all of that, we have no reason and no need to binge.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's so powerful what you're saying. I was on a coaching call last night. I was a participant. There were other people getting coached. And of course, I don't want to like disclose everything, but there was one comment that it's actually a dear friend of mine that was getting coached. And the comment was that basically the hard work being not being able to put work down and just literally close the computer and then just sit there and watch a movie or go do something else. And this person said, I literally don't know what to do. Now, if you're listening to this and you've never had this as a challenge, it sounds like, what are you talking about? Like having fun is fun. If you're coming like me and you're an overworker with suddenly when you're with the family, the kid, like you're at the beach, you're like, what do I do with my hands? You're like, you don't know because you're so used to like producing and seeing and working with people. And I think that's part of what you're talking about, right? Like this connection. It's like, you obviously have no idea how to just be with yourself or how to be with others. Or I mean, it's so meta after that. And also can I tell you this is just me personally, like the reason I bring you on, it's like when someone really has an expertise in an area, they get to seeing like, this is the true problem. Like, yes, they're the list. Yes, people can identify that's me, right? When they hear the 8, they can pick one. But then at the end of the day, you're like, here's what it's really going to take for you. And probably it's different for everyone, right? Like what connection is going to mean for them.
Yeah. And the path to connection, right? It's like, where do I primarily disconnect? Like, what is that? And let me just define disconnection. I think we all know what disconnection is, but the reason why we disconnect, it's a lack of perceived safety.
Yeah.
So somewhere in our brain, there is a perception of danger. So even you, for example, why it's really hard to like slow down is there is a perception. If I slow down, that's dangerous. It's dangerous for me not to be go, to be producing, to be doing, to be all of that. So there is then going to be, we have part of creating the connection is we have to create safety. Yeah. Safety with ourselves, safety in our bodies. There are so many reasons why we disconnect from our bodies, why they don't feel safe to us. Safety with food. There are so many reasons why so many of these foods feel unsafe. So it's this safety. If we don't feel safe enough, we don't have to be 100% safe. But if we don't feel safe enough, there's going to be that lack of safety, and that's the disconnection. When there is disconnection somewhere, there's a perceived threat.
Yeah. Oh, this is so good. Okay. I want to keep talking on and on, but I want to be respectful of your time. Tell the people, how can they find you? What your podcast, your website? Tell us how you work with people. Just tell us all of it because I'm like, I literally want to like go sign up for your program right now. That's always how I know I love it. So tell us all the things.
Yes, absolutely. So my podcast is called Binge Breakthrough. You can find it on any of the podcast platforms. My website is janepilger.com. I have, as far as the way that I work with people, I have 3 different kind of ways that I work with people. I have an online course that is called the Binge Breakthrough Blueprint. It is an even deeper dive than the podcast into each of those 8 reasons. There's also worksheets, things that you can do to kind of like really dive into the 8 reasons. There's also a supportive monthly coaching call that comes along with that so that you can get additional support. So that's the Binge Breakthrough Blueprint. I also have a group program and a one-on-one private coaching program. And both are amazing. I mean, the group program is great. It's small, it's intimate, and there's so much relief in being in a group of people who are all just like, oh, I thought I was alone, like, oh my gosh, you get it. Like just that relief in being around other people who, just share that struggle, particularly when so many people have never even talked about this with anybody before. And then the one-on-one coaching is amazing because wherever you are, whatever is going on, we can go deep. A lot of my work is I've gone very far into the nervous system, trauma informed healing, a lot of the internal work that I think is it's so important in creating that connection. And so a lot of the reason why we disconnect is there are so many reasons. So with the one-on-one work, we can do so much there. So those are the ways that I work with people. And I also want to share another resource with anybody here. And this is a resource that is so near and dear to my heart. And it's what to do after a binge. This is probably the main thing that I Googled all of the time. Every time after a binge, you're in the most pain, the most like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did it again. And so I really wanted to create this, what do I do in these moments after a binge? So and it will guide you through I have a process for after a binge. It will guide you through, really being able to look at it through those glasses of more compassion and curiosity versus shame and judgment. And so you can get that. I'll give you the link, but it's janepilger.com/after. So super easy to find on my website. But that's just a great resource for anybody in those moments that are, I just think, the hardest when it comes to binging is like that time.
We're gonna make sure to link all this. So everybody look in the show notes, either swipe right or left on the podcast you're listening to, renteaclinic.com/blog. We're gonna have all of this linked. So she said all the website name and everything. But again, if you forget that or you're driving, you can't write it down at this moment. Jane, thank you so much for coming on. I think everyone's going to benefit so much from hearing actually how complex this is, and that this is not just get the food out of the house. Like, okay, we can laugh about it. You're not broken. There's nothing wrong with you. There are many answers here. There is relief to move past it, hope in this area. And just thank you for coming on. I really can't thank you enough.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate the time and loved our conversation.
That marks the end of today's episode. But if you're newer to the podcast, I want to tell you about something that we have, and it's a free podcast roadmap. So this is perfect for any of you that are listening where you want to be directed to very specific episodes. So let's say that you are just starting out and you want to know, what should I do right when I start on the medications? Or you're experiencing certain side effects on the GLP-1s, or you want to know what to do if you're in a plateau, or if emotional eating is taking over, or if hunger levels are high. So we have many different categories of episodes that we've talked about, because there's a lot at this point. So if you want to be able to navigate that very easily, we have it broken down by category, and also the episodes that are there, and we hyperlink to everything. So you can just click on it and find the episode, easy peasy. If you want that, you can go to renteaclinic.com/podcast roadmap. We'll have it linked right here underneath the show notes where you're listening. And you can go ahead and get that free resource so that it makes it easy for you to navigate, because I know that it's really hard when someone has an established podcast. I am such a podcast fiend. I'm listening to podcasts all day long. And when I find one that I love, but there's a lot that are out there, I am so lost. So I hope that you enjoy this free podcast roadmap. Again, the link to get to that is going to be renteaclinic.com/podcast roadmap. I hope this is helpful, and let me know if you have any questions.